Welcome into our latest edition of our Cubs REKAP Podcast, a presentation of our REKAP YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast with my partner, Gordon Wittenmyer. I'm David Kaplan. Todd Rosiak for the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel is all over the Brewers beat, and the three of us are going to preview the National League Central Division. Todd, thank you for taking time. Gordon and I usually spar on this, so it'll be nice to have a cooler voice here on the podcast.
Somebody to help calm him down.
Step in. I'll be the referee. Is that what you need me to be?
Yeah, just keep Gordon in line if you can.
I don't know. That's a fool's errand right there.
That is a fool's errand. So we'll get to the Cubs. We'll get to the Reds in a second. Where are the Brewers right now? Because last year everyone went, oh, we got Craig Counsell. Take that, Brewers. We're going to kick your ass. And 10 games out at the end, the Brewers went to the playoffs. So how are they this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, they've got, I would say, a good number of those contributors back from last year's division-winning team, but there's some question marks there. Right at the top of the list would be Christian Yelich, a guy who's 33 years old now. He's coming off major back surgery. It's my contention that for the Brewers to have another good season, they're going to need a full season, a healthy season, and a productive season out of Christian Yelich. So we'll see how that back holds up. I from the outside looking in, I think I would be a little bit nervous when you combine both the age and the fact that baseball is just such a rotational sport, and there's so much torque on a guy's back when he's swinging the bat like Christian Yelich does. But, he looked good in spring. He was healthy. He was running around just fine. Didn't have any setbacks that we noticed or that we were told about. So that's a good sign. So it's all green lights for him moving into opening day. And the other guy I would say, kind of look at him as an X factor for the Brewers this year. If they can get a healthy season out of him and a productive season out of him, things will be good. Is Brandon Woodruff, a guy who had basically his right shoulder rebuilt at the end of 2023 and sat out all of 2024. It was a big blow for the Brewers. They were able to kind of overcome it by, making some good trades. Aaron Savali, Frankie Montas kind of got him over the hump. But this year he's back. His shoulder looks good. He's in probably the final stages, I would say, of getting back from that shoulder surgery completely. And I think if all things go according to plan, it's looking like probably end of April, maybe early May, that you could slot him back into the rotation. I don't know that you'd be looking at the old Brandon Woodruff, the guy who's consistently sitting 97, 98 and, former All-Star, but he could be pretty good. And he kept telling us in spring, wait till the second half. You'll see the old Brandon Woodruff. So we'll see. But those are two real X factors who I feel are going to determine one way or the other how the Brewers turn out this year.
Woodruff is the guy for me that keeps the Brewers relevant in my mind, because we saw a year ago they lose Corbin Burns and win 93 games and win the division going away again. Never mind what Cap said, losing Craig Counsell too, supposedly, the best manager in the game, or whatever the hell they call it, most expensive manager in the game. Anyway, I think between that and the young talent coming, Jackson Chourio and all those guys that catch the ball so well, I don't think they're going away if they get any pitching at all. That's the way I see it. I don't know if they win the thing after losing guys again, Willie Adames and so on. But, man, I'm not going to doubt them again this year like I did last year. I wrote them off.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too. They're a team that's consistently undervalued and predicted to be, kind of middle of the pack and just overlooked. And you look at their record over the last 7-8 years, they're always in the mix. They've always been in the mix. And Jackson Chourio, the guy's he had an unbelievable rookie season, 20 years old. He's a year older now, and he was just crushing the ball this spring. So that obviously bodes well for he and for the Brewers as well. They've got that young, talented outfield core, infielders, Joey Ortiz at shortstop now, Bryce Terang. If they can keep those guys healthy, that's the big thing. If they have any sort of injury problems, you start dinging their depth a little bit. That's where the problems start. I know, most teams you could probably say that about, but I think the Brewers more than any other team, once you get past that starting depth, there is not a lot behind it. They've got a good farm system, but the majority of the real top shelf talent is a ways away yet to help them. They've got a few guys, but overall, if you get past, if they lose Bryce Terang for any amount of time, Joey Ortiz, Jackson Churio, God forbid, and then they're going to be in some trouble. But you're right, though, Gordon. They've consistently been good. They do it almost with mirrors. It seems like they just have to do things a different way. They take on reclamation projects. They roll the dice on guys. Low dollar deals. Hoping for bounce backs and that sort of thing. They sign guys out of independent ball. And they develop pitching. That's the biggest thing, I think. Guys actually want to come there and pitch for them because they've had such a long track record now of success. So, if everything goes according to plan, which we know rarely does, and they can stay healthy, I do agree that the Brewers will be in the mix at the end.
Okay, so you say goodbye to Willy Adames, who I thought was just a winning type player. I remember I was up there last season. Cubs are playing, and you got to get a big hit, a big spot. That dude puts the ball down the left field line, and all of a sudden the Cubs' advantage turns into a deficit. Brewers win. You also got rid of Devin Williams, and now it's Trevor McGill. Is he going to be the closer? What do you think about that move?
Yeah, it's McGill will be the closer. You guys got a little bit of a taste of him in Chicago a few years ago. I know, he was still kind of a young ascending player. The good thing for the Brewers and the good thing for McGill is he got about 4 months of on-the-job training last year when Devin Williams was out. Devin Williams had a stress fracture in his back, so he was sidelined from early in spring training up until the All-Star break last year. And McGill was, I think, 20 for 21 or 20 for 22 in save opportunities. So it's not like he's going to be auditioning this year and you don't really know what you have. Now, he's got to go out and do it again. And now this is the first time that he is the quote unquote, unquestioned closer. Can he do it over the course of a full season? That's the question. They've got some guys behind him who I think can do the job as well. And it may wind up, if McGill stumbles a little bit, if he gets hurt or something like that, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Brewers do more of a committee type deal. But they've got a young guy named Abner Uribe who saved the first 3 games for them last year. And then kind of petered out. That would be kind of probably the next guy up. Another hard thrower, 100 miles an hour, nasty sinker. You just worry about the inexperience with him. So they do have guys in reserve in case McGill doesn't pan out. But you're right. McGill is going to be the guy, and it's going to be interesting because the Brewers do open up at the Yankees in a couple of days, and we'll be seeing Devin Williams in pinstripes. It's going to be kind of weird.
Hey, who's your opening day starter? It's not Nestor, is it?
No, Freddie Peralta.
Nestor
okay. Day 2, yeah. Nestor.
So because he'll be pitching against them.
That'll be a cool storyline as well.
I like Nestor Cortez as well. Let me ask you a question. So Gordon is part of a very vocal group of baseball people, fans, media, whatever, that say, boy, Tom Ricketts, you're cheap. You don't spend enough money. Then comes out.
It's a little more nuanced than that. A little more sophisticated argument than that.
They come out today, and the Dodgers were 1. I think the Red Sox were 2. The Cubs were 3. And per game revenue just off of ticket sales north of $3 million. And then I pull up the payrolls. The Cubs are 12th right now at 183.6. That's down
like
from where it was a year ago.
50 million less than last year.
And the Brewers are at 96.5. So when you see the Cubs being called cheap at 180 whatever, what do you say about the Brewers? Like, is it that bad that they're that low?
Mark Atanasio says, hold my beer, Tom Ricketts. That's what he says.
Right.
So that this is an argument, and this is a gripe that, us as writers, we get from fans all the time. But imagine covering a small market team like the Brewers. Gordon, I know you're in Cincinnati now, so I'm sure you get some of the same thing. But, Mark Atanasio is not one of these, Cohen-type billionaires who just have money out the yin yang and just are throwing it around for for fun. Mark Atanasio is a self-made guy. He's the principal owner. There's an ownership group.
Cohen's self-made too, isn't he? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
And they're running this essentially as a business. He wants to win, but they also want to make money. So I think what's happening.
All right. Yeah, Hold on. You're getting me fired up, man. Because
here we go.
Am I saying it's right? No, but
the industry makes money. The industry's making record revenues. I think they topped 13 million last year. Billion. And so we know the Yankees and the Dodgers and teams like that are swamping the field in terms of some of their local revenues. We know that, but there's also revenue sharing in the game. And some of the teams at the bottom aren't spending that on players. They're getting money in. I was told by a pretty reliable source that the Reds are actually one of the more profitable teams in baseball. Now, you can measure profitability any number of ways. Like, for instance, the Cubs spend a lot of money on property around the stadium as they invest in what's going to be like an enormous ballpark village at some point. And they've already got some of those ancillary revenues coming in. But so the profitability may not show on the way you might measure some of their books, because maybe they're investing in some things. And so maybe by the end of the day, they're not putting as many dollars in their pockets, but they're also not putting as many on the field as they have the ability to. You could make that case. Anyway, my point is this, that there's enough money coming into Cincinnati that they're able to be among, by at least one measure that somebody with knowledge of some of these books has, one of the more profitable teams in the game, mostly by not spending. And teams are making money now. That's part of why their franchise values are so high. All of them over $1 billion now. And so if the revenues weren't there on a year-to-year basis, the franchise values wouldn't be as uniformly high. So I guess what I'm just saying is that even the small market teams oftentimes are doing less than they can for their fans. And Pittsburgh, I would put right at the top of the list as maybe the most egregious. They've been selling their fans a bill of goods for 30 years and more so now than ever. Like they're trying to tell them that they're still in the 80s and early 90s when it comes to the way the wealth disparity is in the game. And it's just simply not true. They got maybe the best young pitcher in the game, and maybe two of the best for sure at the front of their rotation. And they're not even really trying to win this year beyond that. It's unbelievable. But I don't buy this thing that these, that like your owner in Milwaukee is so dramatically different than, Cohen is in a league of his own, right? And he's willing to overspend in the short term, at least, to sort of build his brand to whatever he wants it to be, to build this winner, to build this.
Cohen's the second wealthiest owner in the game, maybe the wealthiest.
Hey, you want to know who the wealthiest owner in the game was when they walked out in '94? It was Carl Pohlad. He was for the longest time. You know who spent less than anybody else in baseball when he owned it? Was Carl Pohlad. My point is a guy's personal wealth only matters insofar as he's willing to get in his own wallet, and that's not what I'm talking about. And now he can do that, but the fact that he's that much richer, they're all billionaires. I mean, come on. So let's.
Jerry Reinsdorf's not a billionaire. He's not.
To this day, he's not?
He's not a billionaire.
Well, I guarantee you that.
He only owns like 20% of the team.
With his assets, I'll bet you he is. The way they measure wealth, I bet you he's a billionaire. But never mind. The point is, these teams are making enough money, and there is some revenue sharing that's not getting spent. We saw the grievance getting threatened against Oakland, and they went out and spent some money. There's issues involved both at the top with some of the revenue, high revenue teams, and at the bottom with some of the low revenue teams that are creating this disparity that we see. And it's not simply that Cohen has a bunch of personal money, he's willing to spend it, and your guy in Milwaukee doesn't.
Gordon, I'll jump in. So there's a couple of points with the Brewers that I'll note here. Number one, as many teams have run into over the last couple of years with this Diamond Sports bankruptcy.
Yeah,
the
Reds being one of them.
The Brewers are already the smallest market in baseball, smallest media market. Even in good times, their broadcasting contract was peanuts compared to most teams. So you take that out of the mix. So they're with FanDuel now, this kind of revamped deal. They're getting pennies on the dollar from what they used to get. The other thing that plays into this,
if they're with the retooled FanDuel, which is what Bally's used to be, they're making more than if they'd gone to MLB.
Right. Some is better than none. You're right. Yeah. I get that, but it's not near what they were making. The other thing that plays into this with the Brewers, and this is what I think Adonasio's mindset is okay. So we've competed consistently well over the last 6, 7, 8, 9 years with a low payroll, consistently low payroll, typically in the bottom half, if not the bottom third. There's been a few years where they were up there a little bit, but if we've competed consistently with a low payroll, why do we need to change? We're competing,
right. That's a business decision, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. They're making business decisions,
right,
year over year within their business. They're all doing it. Personal wealth aside, they're making business decisions.
And then the other thing I think that many teams are probably looking at right now, and I know I talked to a former baseball executive over the winter about this, and I didn't think about it until after we had spoken. I'm like, this kind of makes sense. I think a lot of teams are looking at this now like, why should we spend money? These small market teams are going, we have no shot. We have no prayer of competing with the Dodgers. We have no shot at competing with the Mets with the money that they spend. What difference is it going to make for me to go out and sign some mid-level free agent or two in the offseason, commit $15, $20 million to these guys when I know they're not going to make a bit of difference in the end in the standings? All I'm doing is throwing that money away essentially.
Well, yet they're doing it, right? Almost the entire National League is doing it, though.
Yeah.
There's only a few teams that haven't gone in the National League to ramp up. You look out west, and look what the Diamondbacks did. The Giants wouldn't spend a bunch of money. They were like a 500 team last year.
I've had people in baseball tell me Giants front office people have said nobody wants to live in San Francisco because the city has gone down so much. We've got to overpay to get guys.
Well, the point is that that's a different point. The point is that they are paying to ramp up their team, and the Diamondbacks have paid to ramp up their team. The Padres were talking about trading some guys off because the owner died and they weren't going to go all in like they had, but they haven't. They've still got a very strong roster of $300 million guys and a chance to do some damage in the playoffs. The National League is freaking stacked, and a lot of that's because they are chasing the Dodgers. So I think it makes a difference. I think where it makes a difference probably is mitigating your floor, right? It's it's strengthening your floor of competitiveness. Maybe you can't beat the Dodgers in the postseason, but your boys almost did it a few years ago, and they almost got, agonizing against the Mets, right? Last year.
Yeah. And they've shown, and they have shown in the past too, where if they feel like they're in a position, they will make moves. They will. Adonacio will green light. They'll take on salary at the trade deadline, that sort of thing. So that they will bump up that payroll and they feel it's warranted. But I kind of feel bad for general manager Matt Arnold because the guy's been working miracles with what he's had to work with financially, and he keeps putting together these great rosters and keeps pulling off these great trades. The job's getting harder and harder for him every year to keep doing this. So we'll see. At some point, the rubber's got to meet the road, and Brewers fans for sure. They see what's going on in baseball, and hey, why aren't you spending more money? Why aren't you spending more money? So far, it's fallen on deaf ears. We'll see if it happens. But until they have a more secure broadcasting deal, and we see kind of where the game is headed as far as is there going to be a lockout, that sort of thing, I think it's going to kind of be status quo.
So let me ask you a question. The Dodgers, they're in a different league. They got $338 million in annual local TV money.
Yeah.
I was told by somebody who would know the White Sox this year with their new station that they're struggling to get carriage on Xfinity, will bring in about 35 to 37 million. That's 300 million difference. The Cubs will be just over 100 million. That's still a $200 million at least difference.
Right.
So do you think we're going to have a massive labor shutdown after the 2026 season where the Dodgers don't want one, the Mets don't want one, the Yankees might not, the Phillies might not? Beyond that, I would bet 20 teams at least are going to go, F you guys, we're shutting it down, we're getting a salary cap.
Yeah, I think I think the salary cap's kind of spit in the wind. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but I absolutely agree.
Non-starter. And look what that's what they went after in '94, and look what it got them.
Yeah, it's gonna be ugly for sure. And I think what the argument is going to be now, once you get past that, okay, the salary cap is going to work, is all the have-nots in baseball are going to point to the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees and go, start sharing some of that broadcasting revenue with us.
That's the key.
Start throwing more money in the pot. Make this a more even playing field. And of course, those teams are going to say, hell no. So that's going to be the argument that's going to be had, I think.
That's the fight that the owners should be taking up. If there's 17, 18 owners who feel that they need some kind of cap to get rid of some of this disparity, what they're basically doing. No.
Why? Every other sport does it.
Dude, we just talked about this on the last podcast, and I damn near came across the microphone and strangled you because you're so. Look,
Todd, do you think there should be a cap?
I'm not going to get involved in this one. I want to see Gordon go off. I want to hear his explanation.
Look, you clean up your house internally first. The owners are making plenty of money, tons of money. If this is don't try to take it out of labor's ass. And matter of fact, in baseball, like on all major league sports, the labor, the players are actually the sport. They're the product and the labor. Mm-hmm. Don't be taking it out of their ass. Fix your problem in your own house first. Look what the NFL does. The NFL, the most successful league there is. They share all their revenues. They share all their broadcast revenues. They don't have these local distinctions. Right. And that's why, in Green Bay up there in your neck of the woods thrives, and it's a great franchise. It's a cool market to have within that landscape, and they're able to compete.
Right.
You do something like that. If you can't make that work in baseball, then go to the players and say, hey, we tried, we did it, it didn't work. Let's try to come up with something else that's a compromise too. But until you do that, you got no leg to stand on to try to pin this on the players. It ain't their fault that the Dodgers and the Mets are paying you that much money for Juan Soto.
Put a floor and a cap. You cannot have one team. I'm reading Davon Kovacevic's report on the Pirates.
A floor is just as problematic for different reasons.
He said that last year the Pirates lost money, and they're getting revenue sharing. He said they actually lost money. They cannot
until compete. You show me the damn books and tell me what that means. I don't buy it. Show me what losing money means. Is it because they spent it on something else? They spent their revenues on something else, so they lost money, or some other kind of measure of it? Show me what the measurement is in the details, and you'll have a chance to convince me of that. Until then, I don't buy it.
You bring up a good point, Gordon. That reminds me of, going back to this discussion and turning it to the Brewers. The Brewers will point to the fact that much of their revenue that they could be spending on players, they've also chosen to spend internally on improvements. They've built a huge Dominican
academy.
I was trying to think of the word. Thank you. Academy that is kind of like the jewel of the Dominican right now. They spent $60 million renovating the Maryville facility in Phoenix, and it's a beautiful, and the neighborhood's not great, but the actual facility itself and all the fields around it and everything, tremendous setup for the Brewers. They're spending on infrastructure within the organization, the bells and whistles and that sort of thing. And they're seeing it pay off in terms of player development and that sort of thing. So, while they're not necessarily going out and buying those major league ready players like so many teams do, they're looking at it as an investment in, hey, you know, we're doing what we need to do to succeed, which is starting at the ground floor and making sure we have that foundation built so we can continue this pipeline of really good young talent coming through that eventually we're going to have to trade off because we can't afford it.
Yeah, I mean the Rays, the Guardians do something similar. They put a lot of their resources proportionally into player development and some of their technical side of things to get more out of what they do have in players.
Right.
Well, there's different ways to do this. I mean, look, at the end of the day, there's 162 games for each team, and what is that? 30 times 162. I don't know, 4,800. What is that? How many games is that? 4,800 wins available, whatever it is. But there's a certain number of wins available every year, and that's it. That's it. No matter how much you spend, and so you're gonna. And what's the saying? You know, everybody wins. 50 and loses 50. Everybody wins 60 and loses 60. Whatever it is, and it's the rest of them that matter. So you're spending all this money. There's still only so many gains you can make. The pie is the same size competitively. So there's ways to win at the margins. There's ways to bludgeon people with resources. There's different ways to do it. If you want to talk about competitive parity, who's winning championships, I'd say that Major League Baseball actually has a pretty good record when it comes to that compared to some of the other sports.
Definitely.
Now, part of that's the nature of the game. So it's not it's certainly not probably the economics of the game. But still, you do have a chance if you do some things smart in maybe different ways than just bludgeoning people with money. And some of the teams that spend a lot of money don't win it all. So there is a massive disparity, and there's an argument to be made that some of this should be fixed, but it's not the player's fault. And to try to take it out of the union, or to try to take from the union, so that these billionaires can have more stability with their revenue streams and billions.
Take, Gordon. We're not going to rehash the whole last podcast.
It's an awful take if you're a billionaire oligarch. But if you're about a free market and an economy of supply and demand,
then why does every other league have a salary cap? Because
they snookered their unions. The unions weren't as strong.
I don't think they snookered anybody.
Well,
that's a healthy way to do business. The Milwaukee Brewers, the Pittsburgh Pirates,
and they
the
still
White Sox,
have shutdowns. They've still had shutdowns
with what Steve Cohen, the Dodgers, John Middleton in Philly. They cannot.
It's not a silver bullet. It's not a magic pill.
I would argue Tampa and some of these teams, Oakland's or Sacramento's at $50-some million. Guess what? There's a floor, and you're going to have to hit it, or it's going to affect your revenue share. And then there's a salary cap. Let's come to an agreement on a number. And guess what? That's how we're going to do things. 100%. And I think that
you're dead wrong.
I think there's 20 plus owners that would flush an entire season to get that done.
That would be the dumbest ass thing you could freaking do. In 94, 95, I just looked this up because I just did a story on some of this labor stuff. In 94, they, as of August, when they walked out, they had the highest average attendance in Major League history. They had gone to over 31,000 fans a game on average in the league. And we know why. Now let's not kid ourselves. The reason that the strike deadlines continued to pass because owners were unwilling to give on the salary cap, and they pushed it to the wall. And players struck, eventually turned into lockout, replacement players, and the whole thing. It took until 2006 before they reached those attendance levels again. So what is that? 12 years. It took 12 years. And it only started to grow again because of the steroid-fueled summer of 98. Look at today's game. They're higher revenues than they've ever had across the industries. We just said it, $13 million record last year.
Billion.
I keep saying that, billion. Viewership is up. Attendance isn't quite what it was back then. but since the pandemic, it's risen every year, and it's back up to pretty robust numbers. So it's in a really good place right now, except for the TV stuff that you alluded to, and that's going on across all sports, right? The direct
except the NFL.
The direct to consumer model is going to be an issue going forward. They think long term that it'll still be lucrative, but short term, there's some teams that are going to take a hit, and we know that the smaller market teams have less margin to work with, so they probably will take more of a hit. But in this landscape of the game being healthy economically right now, the industry itself being healthy economically, there's two $700 million ball players. And one of them is the greatest marketing tool that this game has ever seen.
He's the best player I've ever seen.
Shohei Ohtani. So that's where you are in the game right now. Now, you start taking pot shots at the golden goose here. One of the differences between now and back then when they walked out the last time and lost 6 months or whatever it was, you don't have enough steroids in the game to bring back the interest this time. You're just a few years past COVID when all sports were shut down, when people learned to live without outside entertainment, and some people liked it. You're at a very inflationary time in this country, where everything costs more, and nothing has been more expensive than sports in recent years, especially compared to what a lot of people remember not too many years ago. And you're in a direct-to-consumer landscape right now that's accelerating into the future, which means that instead of selling rights at hundreds of millions of dollars to a cable outlet that's going to subsidize that with every subscription they bring in, even though only 20% of their subscribers want sports, you've got to go fan to fan to fan to sell your packages. You're going to kick those guys in the nads and then try to sell them one of those streaming packages? You're out of your freaking mind to shut this game down right now.
I don't disagree on that. I just think you're grossly underestimating the willingness of 20 plus owners to go, I'm not going to keep losing money. Not going to happen. I am shutting it down, and I won't come back till I get what I want.
Let's say you're Bob Castellini, who owns the Cincinnati Reds. You've got Ellie De La Cruz, who might be one of the top 5 young talents in the game right now. He might be one of the top 5 talents in the game, period, right now. And right now, you're paying him less than $1 million a year because he's a 0 to 3 player. You've got a window with him of 4 to 5 years. Same with Matt McClain. Same with Hunter Green, who's under contract.
In Milwaukee.
Yeah, you've got this incredible core right now of young frontline talent.
Agreed.
They don't have the depth that some other teams have, but if they can get to a postseason series, they got a chance to win it if they're healthy. Now, you're Bob Castellini, and that's your team right now. And as I just pointed out, because of what you're paying players, you're one of the more profitable teams in baseball right now. Why in the hell would you support something that shuts that down? Because if you shut that down, then we're talking 2 seasons, this season and next season. Maybe you get through next season before it shuts down. But now you've just lost the window with that core. And what happens to what profitability you do have? And you're one of those teams that you're going to have to rely on. You're relying on FanDuel and whatever's coming next with streaming more than some of these other big market teams that have their own networks.
Cable model they were stealing for a long time.
Yeah, no doubt. So maybe he doesn't want that, and maybe not all these 20 owners that aren't among the elite revenue teams. Maybe they don't all want that.
It's not what it sounded like. All right, give us your thoughts on Shohei Ohtani. I just got done watching him like everybody. I've watched a lot of him. Gordon interviewed him last year. Asked him if he was going to consider the Cubs, and he laughed.
I interviewed him. You should go look at that clip.
And so give me your thoughts. Is he the greatest player you've ever seen?
The guy's unbelievable. I mean, what more can you say? I just drawing from my own personal experience. Okay, I've covered games. I remember covering the very first game he ever participated in for the Angels. It actually took place in Maryvale against the Brewers way back when. And thinking back then, what's the hubbub about here? What about this guy? Well, we saw what the hubbub's about now. But the thing that strikes me about him is his last year with the Angels, they were playing in Milwaukee, and I was going into the Angels clubhouse for something, and I walked past them, and I'm 6'4". I'm a pretty good sized guy. I mean, he was every bit as tall as me, way wider than me, and like this guy runs like the wind. Throws 100 miles an hour, can hit the crap out of the baseball. I mean, just like you hear that term generational talent. I mean, this guy's like a multi-generational talent. And then you've got the looks, you've got the just everything that goes into that
dog
of being a superstar, the dog, it's unbelievable. And Gordon, you've run across this as well on the beat with the Japanese players. You've got the Japanese contingent of media that follow them around, and we get to know those guys. They're great guys. It's just amazing to see the amount of interest from that side of the pond, just how intense it is. And it just tells you that we're watching something special. We're in the midst of something special. I hope to God that if he's going to pitch this year, he doesn't get hurt again. Like after going through what he went through with those double Tommy Johns, it would be a tremendous shame. And the Dodgers, of course, are hoping that doesn't happen too with the money they've got invested in him. But what a gift to the game. We're fortunate to be able to watch him whenever they play, whenever the Dodgers play the Reds, whenever the Dodgers play the Brewers. It's always must see TV. That's for sure.
Gordon, give us your NL Central 1-5.
Oh, wait, before we do this, Todd, do you agree? I think you and I agree on this, Cap, that wild card's not coming out of the Central.
I agree.
I mean, the way it looks right now, absolutely. I would not argue that one bit.
So all of a sudden there's a premium on who's going to finish at the top of this division.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I've wavered on this because it's funny. Maybe it was because I knew you were coming on, Todd. I started looking at it different. 1 through 5 in the division, Milwaukee. I'm not sleeping on those guys again. I'm not dismissing them again. Milwaukee won.
No disrespect, Todd. They're not winning the division.
Hey, Milwaukee number 1, Cubs number 2, Reds number 3, Pirates number 4, Cardinals dead last.
Yeah, the Cardinals are a joke. They're embarrassing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'll go. I've been going back and forth in my head. Cubs, Reds at the top of the division. I'm such a believer in Terry Francona. I think he's going to turn things around for them. They've got good young pitching. They got the Ellie De La Cruz effect. Matt McLean's healthy, as you mentioned, Gordon. They've got that really good young core, and I think Terry Francona is going to positively impact them. So I'm going to put Reds and Cubs right kind of neck and neck at the top of the division.
Only one can finish at the top. You got to pick one.
All right. You're putting the pressure on. I'm sending you to the postseason, Gordon. Cincinnati, back to the postseason.
I was hoping to take October off.
Nah, I know you've had enough of that for a while. I'll go Reds, Cubs, Brewers, Pirates, Cardinals. I think the Brewers are going to be good. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to be in it. I just have a sneaking suspicion that their lack of depth is going to wind up biting them in the end. And they'll still be in it. They're still going to be grinding away, and I think they're still going to surprise people. I just don't think they have enough to overtake the Reds or the Cubs this year.
And I am going Cubs. I have them at 91 wins. Cubs, Brewers, Reds, Pirates, Cardinals. That's where I'm at. I just think the Cubs will add on if they're leading in July. And I think they have the best team and the best depth in the division. Would I like to see a front of the rotation starter added? 1,000%.
So let's make this argument. If the Cubs had not traded away Cody Bellinger right after getting Kyle Tucker, they're far and away the favorites, right?
But where does he play?
Figure it out. I don't know. First base.
But that was all part of the same move, though. They getting moving Bellinger was what, in their mind, allowed them to do
it.
Tucker and Presley.
Yeah.
Yeah, Presley's a nice pickup for them for sure. They needed that.
Like, I like Michael Busch, and I think he should be our first baseman. I don't know where you play Cody Bellinger. I don't. Now, if you told me Cody Bellinger's money should have gone to go get, name the starter, Dylan Cease or Corbin Burns or whoever. Cease didn't get moved. Burns ended up going to Arizona. They should have spent the money on a front of the rotation horse. Who?
Crochet.
Garrett Crochet was out there.
Yeah. Yep.
So somebody like that is what they should have done with the money.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I mean, as we tape this right before opening day, they just settled on their fifth starter, and they should have more depth than that. I mean, even the friggin' Reds named their fifth starter last week. So the Cubs should have more depth than that in their rotation.
Agreed. So, well, thank you for taking time, Todd.
My pleasure. Always fun being out with you guys. Gordon, we'll see you down the road. Well, we'll see you
soon. In a week or two, right? Pretty soon, yeah.
That's coming up.
All right, I'm coming up to what did you guys sell the naming rights for this year? Is it still American Family Field?
Yeah, that's a long-term deal. It's going to be American Family Field for a while. A lot of people still call it Miller Park. I don't blame them, but I think that's locked in for some years. So
yeah, I'm coming up there when the Cubs make
Miller
their
Park.
First foray into Wisconsin. So I'll probably see you on the field.
Yeah, looks good, man. All right, sounds good. We'll see you, Gordon. See you soon, Dave. We'll see you come down the road, and take care.
All the best.
All right, thanks, Todd. Thanks for doing this, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you go. That's Todd Rosiak from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Todd_Rosiak on Twitter. If you want a really good follow, and he's all over the Milwaukee Brewers beat.
Definitely.
Gordon, that was a lot of fun, and I didn't want to reach over and punch you this time. Maybe briefly, but I
came pretty close on my end over here.
All right, for everybody out there, that's Gordon. I'm Cap. This is our latest edition of our Cubs Recap Podcast, a presentation of our Recap YouTube channel and available audio only everywhere you get your favorite podcast. Next week, we'll be into baseball, and I'm going to pin Gordon down. Who's the MVPs? Who are the Cy Youngs? We'll get all that for you next week after a few games of MLB. Have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you subscribing. Click that little notification bell, and you'll get an alert anytime we post new content here on the channel. Take that.